You guys, I know we just talked about Justin Baldoni and Ryan Reynolds yesterday, but Justin has hit Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and her publicist, Leslie Sloane, with a $400 million lawsuit. And we, of course, have to break down what is included in this complaint. In a lawsuit filed in New York federal court on Thursday, Justin alleges extortion, defamation, and claims related to breach of contract, among several others. He's joined by his film studio Wayfarer and its chief executive, Jamie Heath, and their public relations representative, Melissa Nathan and Jennifer Abel. They seek at least $400 million. Also named in the lawsuit is Blake's husband, Ryan Reynolds, and her publicist, Leslie Sloane. Justin's lawyer has been teasing this huge lawsuit to come against Blake after they already filed a $250 million lawsuit against the New York Times. I'm going to go over some of what is included in this 179-page suit. This lawsuit alleges that Blake wrongfully accused Justin and Wayfarer Studios of misconduct to protect her image after her controversy in August 2024. According to Justin and Wayfarer, Blake used threats and extortion to take control of a film they co-financed and excluded them from its premiere and after party. After enduring mistreatment for over a year and a half, Justin remained silent to support the film's success. However, when Blake's image was tarnished, she allegedly fabricated harassment claims against Justin and publicly blamed him and Wayfarer instead of taking responsibility for her actions in the way that she ruined her own reputation by promoting the movie the way that she did. So this is what they are claiming in the suit. The complaint states, Lively, working with her husband, her publicist Ann Jones, among others, set out on a campaign to tar and feather plaintiffs in the press. They conspired and worked in concert with the New York Times to put out a blockbuster news report as devastating as it was false. They advanced a fabricated narrative in the press that plaintiffs had harassed Lively, then embarked on a calculated and malicious smear campaign to destroy her reputation as retaliation for daring to complain about the harassment. Defendants laid their trap carefully over a period of months before springing it all at once on the eve of the winter holidays. Just as plainly, they knew full well that their claims were entirely baseless because their own wrongfully obtained evidence proved that neither the alleged harassment nor the accompanying smear campaign against Lively ever existed. Later it states, at bottom, this is not a case about celebrities snipping at each other in the press. This is a case about two of the most powerful stars in the world deploying their enormous power to steal an entire film right out of the hands of its director and production studio. Then, when Lively and Reynolds' efforts failed to win them the acclaim they believed they so richly deserved, they turned their fury on their chosen scapegoat, tolerating a year and a half of their behavior while remaining polite and professional at every turn offered Baldoni and Wayfarer no protection. We later get into the timeline of how the movie came to be with Justin through his production company. Wayfarer got their hands on The Book It Ends With Us and acquired the rights to make the film. Blake was cast in late 2022 and was granted an executive producer credit. She had requested to be a producer, but Wayfarer and Sony said that that wasn't going to reflect the role that she was asked to play in the production. But clearly, they're saying that she had other plans in mind. They claim that in the beginning, everything was smooth sailing and that they had positive interactions and text messages, but that quickly changed because Blake wanted to insert herself into the production process and try to take over as many roles as she could, starting with wardrobe. And if you remember when set photos first came out, there was so much backlash saying that what Blake's character was wearing was horrible, and of course, Sony wasn't happy about this, so Justin wanted to talk to Blake, and the complaint claims that this interaction has been falsely reported in her complaint as well as in the New York Times, as they wrote, following these events, Baldoni approached Lively in her trailer to discuss necessary wardrobe adjustments and resetting their relationship to assert his role as director and his need to have approval over her wardrobe. The conversation, while professional, took considerable time and was later grossly misrepresented in Lively's CRD complaint, which falsely characterized the exchange as a lengthy outburst that delayed filming and caused the crew to wait for hours while Baldoni cried in Lively's dressing room. On information and belief, Lively circulated this false account to the New York Times with the intention and result that it be widely published. This conversation did not take hours, and any length of time it took was not because Baldoni cried for hours. In truth, rather than take heed of the concerns of the film's distributor and director, Lively took this time to, among other things, suggest to Baldoni that he was being gaslit by Sony, Heath, and the other producer, and tried to convince him to let her continue to take the helm. Baldoni did briefly become emotional during the conversation, but only in response to what he believed was a genuine compliment from Lively, praising his work as a director and actor. In hindsight, this was part and parcel of the ongoing pattern of manipulation and gaslighting by Lively intended to continue to allow her autonomy over her wardrobe. Then we get into the rooftop scene of the movie and how Blake and Ryan Reynolds seem to take this over. Even during the premiere of the movie, Blake gave credit to Ryan for writing this scene.
So the iconic rooftop scene in this movie, my husband actually wrote it. Nobody knows that, but you now.
Apparently this interview even alarmed Sony, and they emailed Wayfarer about it, to which Wayfarer said they had no knowledge of this until her interview, and she was giving full credit to him. Justin's complaint detailed the situation further, writing, as another example, early in the pre-production stage, Lively sent Baldoni a long text describing how directors never permitted her to write scenes for the movies she acted in, nor gave her writing credits, even making her hand scribble her suggestions for lines so that they could not be traced to her. Lively boasted that she had even written for her husband's movies. Then, Lively asked if she could take a pass at writing the rooftop scene in It Ends With Us, in which the character Ryle and Lily first meet. This pivotal scene, much beloved by book fans, was critical for setting the tone for the movie, so Baldoni was reluctant to allow an actor, rather than a union screenwriter, to rewrite this key scene. But Baldoni felt the need to allow Lively to rewrite the scene and agreed to take a look at what she put together. The draft of the rooftop scene that Lively sent Baldoni dramatically differed from what had been written originally. Baldoni was hesitant about many of the changes, but thanked Lively for her passion and diplomatically told her that the scene would likely end up being somewhere between the original version and Lively's version. Also, I want to note that in this complaint, we hear that Blake did not read the It Ends With Us book, so it is just really crazy to me that she wanted to take over rewriting the scene and she did not read the book. But anyway, the complaint says, seemingly stunned by Baldoni's exceedingly mild resistance, Lively did not respond and went silent for multiple days. Later, she confirmed in a text message below that Baldoni's response, of course, didn't feel great for me. Or, another mega celebrity friend and Ryan Reynolds, to have my passion praised instead of my specific contribution. Lively was referring to an earlier meeting where Lively summoned Baldoni to her New York penthouse, where Baldoni was greeted by Ryan Reynolds, who launched into enthusiastic praise for Lively's version of the scene. Hours later, as the meeting was ending, a famous and famously close friend of Reynolds and Lively walked into the room and similarly began praising Lively's script. Baldoni understood the subtext. He needed to comply with Lively's direction for the script. Later, Baldoni felt obliged to text Lively to say that he liked her pages and hadn't needed Reynolds and her mega celebrity friend to pressure him. Lively responded that the two were her dragons. The message could not have been clearer. Baldoni was not just dealing with Lively, he was also facing Lively's dragons, two of the most influential and wealthy celebrities in the world who were not afraid to make things very difficult for him. And it later was revealed that this mega celebrity friend was Taylor Swift. And in the complaint, we also see these text messages between Justin and Blake where he says, "Great, also working on rooftop scene today. I really love what you did. It really does help a lot. Makes it so much more fun and interesting, and I would have felt that way without Ryan and Taylor. You really are a talent across the board. Really excited and grateful to do this together." Blake says, "That's very appreciated. It means a lot. I'm deeply inspired by the film we're gonna make outside of the success of this book. We have such an opportunity to not only surprise people who love the book, but reach an even bigger audience by making an undeniably dynamic and also commercial film. The moment that excited me the most the other day was when you said you're not funny. You are going to kill that rooftop scene. You know it, I'm sure." Even though it was said in playful self-deprecation that we all participate in, it made me think of the process as a whole. Please know I trust that on the day you got me, and I hope that you trust that I've got you if you want it. We're in this together, and we are two of the most determined people I know. We also have very high bars set for ourselves. To collaborate with that type of partner is a gift that neither of us will squander, because we both care too much about the result and also the experience. I have no motives except for you to win. As a director, as an actor, as a studio, as a writer, if you win, I win. If you win, our movie wins. We are aligned, and I will bring everything I have to this. As for, I assume, Taylor and Ryan, and for that matter, I am the luckiest on the planet to have them as my dance moms level stage moms. They are embarrassingly abusive. That said, they're also my most trusted partners and the people I go to first with anything creative I touch, and I'm the person they each go to first. That reciprocal creativity and support has been one of my life's greatest and most fulfilling gifts. When they loved and signed off on the pages, I felt good to send them to you. They asked what you thought specifically after. They checked in so many times. I told them that you laughed a bunch and said it's probably a blend, but you appreciate my passion so much, which of course didn't feel great for me or them to have my passion be praised instead of any specific contribution, or even just that you didn't like the pages, which was fine also. So I think they wanted you and me to see how they felt about the work because they've been by my side for far too many experiences where I've been overlooked. I spoke to you about this when we first met. They've watched me handwrite scripts because the director is too afraid to send the FDX file, yet he scans and has someone hand type all 120 pages of my pencil rewrites. They've watched me be hired as a writer and paid a significant fee for it, but on the condition that I never ask for credit, which I could give an ish about. It's more the principle of the dynamic at play. They've watched the other side of it too, where I'm told at signing on that I'm wanted as a true collaborator, but once we get to work, I'm really just seen as a yes man audience and actor. Both Ryan and have established themselves as absolute titans as writers and storytellers outside of their primary gig, just singing or acting or just directing. I'm so lucky to have them as creative barometers, but also to have them as people who prop me up and make sure I'm seen for all I can and do offer, because they know firsthand all I contribute. They also know I'm not always as good at making sure I'm seen and utilized for fear of threatening egos or fear of affecting the ease of the process. They don't give an ish about that, and because of that, everyone listens to them with immense respect and enthusiasm. So I guess I have to stop worrying about people liking me. If you ever get around to watching Game of Thrones, you'll appreciate that I am Khaleesi, and like her, I happen to have a few dragons, for better or worse, but usually for better, because my dragons also protect those I fight for. So really, we all benefit from those gorgeous monsters of mine. You will too, I can promise you. It says, Blake then went on to begin altering the script daily, and it was alarming to those part of the production. And to the fat-shaming claims against Justin to Blake, he also included text message screenshots of times that he was trying to make her more comfortable about filming with her postpartum body. She texted him, kicking butt, but it's still a ton of work with not a ton of time. What's the chance we can do body scenes at the end of the schedule? He said, I'm sure you are. Honestly, there's 1 billion moving parts to schedule right now. I just turned in the rewrite. And so they are hard at work. So much of it comes down to locations and other cast availability, etc. So to be really honest, I have no clue. I want you to know you will look amazing. Anything you are insecure about, we will talk through and get creative together and make you comfortable. I just don't want you to stress about your body. It's the last thing you need. As soon as I have a rough schedule that's even remotely accurate, I'll share, and I'll make sure the team keeps this in mind as well. But Blake still accused him of fat shaming her when he had asked their shared trainer her weight so he could prepare for a scene where he had to lift her. She was so offended that she allegedly threatened to leave the film, to which Justin could not afford to have happened. But giving in to Blake and her demands clearly had others talking, as we see screenshots of a producer texting Jamie Heath saying he cannot let her have opinions on everything. And Jamie said, Blake? The producer goes on to say, or she's going to be co-directing this film. Yes. Yeah, we were talking about that a lot yesterday. Exactly. This is why everyone is starting to lose it. We've been talking about the same thing for months. Yep, it's starting to get resolved. No, it's not. It became a running conversation about how to handle her texts of demands wanting to be more involved in the film. Now, as most of us know, if we've been following the story, there was a period of time where the film had to pause because there were strikes. And when the film came back from strike, Justin was hit with a list of demands from Blake in order to continue filming. We actually see the letter that Wayfarer was hit with from Blake's team that says, Dear Wayfarer team, with the tentative resolution of the SAG-AFTRA strike, we are writing to address how to handle a return to the set of It Ends With Us, the film. It is no surprise to the film's producers that the experience of shooting the film has been deeply concerning on many levels. The complaints of our client and others have been repeatedly conveyed, and well documented throughout pre-production and photography. While we reserve all legal rights, at this stage, our client is willing to forego a more formal HR process in favor of everyone returning to work and finishing the film as long as the set is safe moving forward. In order for our client to feel safe returning to the production, we are attaching a list of protections that will need to be guaranteed and observed by the film's producers. If the production is unwilling to accept or uphold these protections, our client is prepared to pursue her full legal rights and remedies. This letter is not intended to constitute a full statement of all facts and circumstances relating to this matter. It is not intended to be, nor shall it be constructed as, a waiver, release, or relinquishment of any of our client's rights or remedies, legal or equitable, all of which are hereby expressly reserved. Sincerely, Lively's counsel. According to the complaint, both Wayfarer and Sony attempted to revise the document to make it factually accurate, being that their representation of set culture was inaccurate, and sent comments through Wayfarer's attorney, who incorporated Sony's notes. But Lively's counsel's response made it clear that the list was not open for negotiation. It was clear that Wayfarer would have to sign the document as is, despite the falsity of its institutions. The alternative was to lose millions of dollars, cost hundreds of people their jobs after they had been out of work for months, and destroy their relationship with Sony. Nonetheless, the demands themselves were agreeable. Indeed, some were already in place. The lawsuit alleges that an intimacy coordinator was engaged for It Ends With Us well before production began, contrary to Blake's claims that one was not present, or at least she was making it seem like one was not present in her list of demands because she wanted one present at all times, which obviously, if you're reading that, it makes it seem like there was no intimacy coordinator. Justin had arranged for a female intimacy coordinator to ensure comfort during intimate scenes with a focus on the female gaze, and the lawsuit further claims that Blake refused to meet with the intimacy coordinator during the pre-production process and insisted on handling discussions about intimate scenes directly with Justin, often in her home and with Ryan Reynolds present. This created an uncomfortable working dynamic, according to the suit, and they claim that Blake allegedly used these circumstances to falsely accuse Justin of insisting on uncomfortable or gratuitous scenes, despite the ideas coming from the intimacy coordinator and being typical for such productions. Like, he would meet with the intimacy coordinator, he took a bunch of notes, he would try to tell them to Blake, and this was interpreted in her complaint as him being inappropriate or bringing things to the table that she did not like, when he was just relaying what the intimacy coordinator had allegedly told him. The complaint also addressed the birth scene that Blake mentioned in her complaint, where she claimed that she was uncomfortable during the filming of this scene in the movie. In Justin's lawsuit, it states, later in her complaint, Lively alleges that during a scene, the birthing scene, she was mostly nude with her legs spread wide in stirrups and only a small piece of fabric covering her hoo-ha, and that there were non-essential persons present. This allegation is knowingly false. To begin with, to describe Lively as mostly nude and naked from below the chest down is dishonest. Lively was wearing black briefs and a pregnancy suit that covered her midsection, and her top was covered by a hospital gown. Moreover, film footage clearly demonstrates that the set was not chaotic, as she alleges, and only essential individuals, film crew, and talent were present for the scene and doing their jobs. Importantly, Lively knowingly and falsely alleges that the film's financier was present during these scenes and insinuates he was watching her nude, which he had no desire to do. He was not even on set during the filming of that scene. He arrived later, merely stopped by for a brief moment amid his busy business schedule, and was present during the filming of a scene in which Lively's character spoke with a female OBGYN doctor, a scene in which she was fully clothed. The complaint also goes on to say that it was Blake who would talk to Justin out of character in scenes, so when he read on the list of her demands that he was to no longer talk out of character to her, he was confused. Lively's later complaint sheds light on what this point was alluding to in this demand, which at the time was baffling, and upon review of the filmed evidence, is unequivocally based on a lie. Production was filming a romance montage of Lily and Ryle on their date. One of the producers played music to set the mood so the characters could slow dance. Lively, consistently unable to take direction, insisted she really liked the idea of the characters constantly talking because, as she described, she and her husband liked to keep talking and talking and talking. Baldoni, her director, and the film's assistant director, who was directing the scene, disagreed. In an attempt to encourage her to take this direction, Baldoni offered up that he and his wife often just look into each other's eyes silently, to which she responded like sociopaths, and laughed. Baldoni laughed and shook it off while Lively once again started talking about how she and her husband can't not talk. Baldoni said, "I think that's cute," and complimented the couple, to which Lively responded, "I think it's more than cute." Lively continued arguing and tried to direct him for the scene. While they were supposed to be in character filming the scene, at some point Heath and another producer, irritated, called Baldoni aside to express they can't capture the intended shot because Lively wouldn't stop talking. He was instructed to somehow get her to stop. While there was a brief verbal exchange, Baldoni, heeding the instruction of their assistant director and producers, continued to try to bring them back into character. As they were acting in this montage scene, Lively continued to break character and speak as herself rather than as Lily, which was extremely confusing for Baldoni, who was trying to balance directing this scene within his artistic vision while also acting in character while filming and trying to get Lively to do the same. Lively apologized for the smell of her spray tan and body makeup. Baldoni responded, "It smells good," and continued acting, slow dancing as he believed his character would, which requires some amount of physical touching. Lively took them out of character again and began to joke about Baldoni's nose, which he laughed off and joked in turn, even as Lively joked that he should get plastic surgery. Lively incorrectly alleges that this scene was filmed without sound. Baldoni was wearing a microphone and the entire exchange is captured on camera. Any suggestion that this scene was filmed in any manner other than pure professionalism by Baldoni is unequivocally countered with actual evidence. Her allegation of harassment is a documented and knowingly fabricated lie. They also claim she improvised kissing, writing, "Moreover, it was Lively who engaged in unchoreographed kissing scenes." One scene, again captured on camera, exhibits Lively pulling Baldoni in to kiss her. It is clear Lively was initiating unchoreographed kissing. In one take, she pulled Baldoni in and kissed him once, in another twice, and the number of kisses entirely initiated by Lively changed at her whim. They also detailed how she didn't seem to be able to handle direction, as they wrote, "While Baldoni and Wayfarer clearly agreed that coworkers should respect physical space, Lively's constant confusion of references to her character as played by Lively as opposed to Lively herself became problematic and interfered with production. This was caused in large part by Lively's persistent desire to direct and inability to accept direction. For example, her allegation that Baldoni inappropriately called her sexy was in fact a reference to a scene where everyone was wearing onesies, but Lively was covering her onesie with a big coat. Baldoni, her director, asked that she take off the big coat so that her onesie would be visible in the scene. Baldoni said, "It will be hot," as it was 90 degrees in the small bar with no air conditioning. Lively mischaracterizes this in her complaint as Baldoni referring to her personally as hot, using the slang meaning of the term. Given that Lively herself had earlier expressed to him that she wanted her character's wardrobe to be sexier, Baldoni encouraged her to accept direction by saying, "It's sexy," meaning that without the big coat, the wardrobe was sexier, as Lively had said she wanted it to be. Lively took this personally. She was unable to take direction, later alleging this behavior was inappropriate. Regarding her self-chosen wardrobe, stating, "That's not what I'm going for." Baldoni, recognizing that she may have taken his direction personally and appeared offended, apologized more than once. His statements were immediately followed by his gesture that she had something in her teeth, and a request for someone on set to get her toothpick. This exchange, all of which is captured on camera, demonstrates how ludicrous and deliberately malicious Lively's allegations are. And apparently after the strike, she had even more script notes and changes beyond what was already performed during phase 1 of production. But in worry over his reputation, given Blake and her list of demands that she had, and fearing that he would look bad if she were to come out and use that against him in some way and not do the movie and say that was why, he just gave her control as she wished. Justin sent an email to his team in December 2023 saying, "Hey team, attached is a revised script with the below notes / caveats in bold. This is not final as there are things we need to discuss and then implement. Also, I have added in our AD here to have eyes on this so he can digest at the same time as all of you. I've spent the better part of the last few days trying to figure this out. Everyone knows how I feel about all this and how angry I am that Blake has taken over our film and somehow rewrote a movie we spent years developing, writing, and funding. So yes, I'm furious and sad, but I will continue to get back up with a goal of getting us to the finish line. I have come to terms with the fact that the only way out is through. I'm waving the white flag and submitting. I am going to give her 98% of what she wants. I'm sure none of us have the energy to fight anymore. The team who has been working their butts off needs a shooting script on January 2nd. So here's where we are. There are minor things I did to each scene. Some I made notes on and tiny ones I didn't. Most of what I touched is below. The big issues are going to be intimacy, how and what we are shooting for those scenes, and how the script is going to be presented to her and with what notes. To that end, we all need to get on the phone and talk through it, as the risk of something innocuous or not meeting her standards could and would very likely be used against me, as it already has, and creatively is impossible in an environment shrouded in fear. By now, we all know what she is capable of. The complaint goes on to talk about how Blake took over the film even more, ultimately replacing the film's editors with her own editors that she knew through Reynolds, and how Sony supported Lively's demands, and that despite Justin's cut of the film testing better with a test audience, they ultimately had to go with Blake's version. In the complaint they wrote, not surprisingly, Lively reneged on her promise and insisted that her version be released to the public instead of Baldoni's cut as director, even claiming that the book's author, Colleen Hoover, would refuse to promote the film as well if Lively's version was not chosen. Sony called to tell Wayfarer that neither Lively nor any of the cast would promote the film unless Lively's cut were used. Baldoni was forced to choose between killing the film and his own career by insisting on his own creative vision and rights, or putting out a version of the film that Baldoni knew could still be so important to DV survivors, even if it differed greatly from what it could have been. Baldoni reluctantly chose the latter and stood down, allowing Lively's version of the film to be released and promoted. Baldoni was essentially forced to fire himself as director and allow Lively to finish his film, knowing it was the only choice he could make to serve. Justin went on to get excluded from a number of promotional events for the movie, and at the premiere of the movie, you guys, these pictures are wild, but there are photos of Justin and his friends and family that were sent to the basement of the building upon Blake Lively and the rest of the cast's arrival, as they had to be separated. In the complaint, it says once the main theater was deemed clear of Lively and her guests, Baldoni and his group were ushered into a separate theater to view the film. At the conclusion of the screening, they were again quickly escorted out of the building by security to avoid even a chance of interaction with Lively or her guests. He also stated that the plan for the movie to be marketed the way that he was promoting it was his plan all along. He did not go rogue. It's also noted in the complaint that Wayfarer tried to talk to Sony about the promotional aspect for the film and that they should change direction based on the public's responses to what some of was out there.
But clearly, Blake just kept doing what she was doing.
Later in the complaint, we hear about Blake's publicist and Justin's PR crisis manager, Melissa Nathan. Now bear with me here. On August 8th, 2024, Melissa and Leslie agreed to work together before speaking to the media about any sensitive topics, okay? However, Leslie, who's representing Blake, apparently broke this agreement by speaking independently to a Daily Mail reporter. She provided statements that shifted negative attention away from Blake and onto Justin. The complaint alleges that Leslie planted stories in the press to portray Justin in a negative light, claiming that he was causing issues on set and disliked by the cast. These stories were used to distract from the criticism Blake was facing during her press tour for the film. Leslie apparently misled Melissa by not disclosing her earlier conversations with the Daily Mail, and this left Melissa unaware that she was operating within a manipulated narrative when handling the fallout from the media coverage. Included in the complaint is more text where Justin was asking his team for reassurance that they were not planting stories about Blake. Now, there's also drama between Justin and his former publicist, Stephanie Jones, that we have talked about. And the whole story here in this complaint is that Justin and his team seem to believe that Stephanie is the reason Blake got those text messages and created this whole story about how Justin tried to ruin her and started this whole thing in an attempt to redeem her image. Just to not confuse anyone, Justin's former publicist, Stephanie Jones, has the company Jones Work. Justin's point PR person was Jennifer Abel. She worked under Stephanie. Stephanie and Jennifer basically had a falling out, and Jennifer was no longer going to be working under Stephanie. Because Jennifer was no longer working there, she gave back her work phone that had a lot of information on it. Stephanie had seen these messages on her work phone, and they are alleging that she leaked private messages, spread false rumors, and attempted to sabotage Jennifer. Justin and Wayfarer also stopped working with Stephanie, and in the complaint, they seem to insinuate that Stephanie was out for revenge on the fact that they no longer were working with her, and used Jennifer Abel's work phone to concoct a story with Blake and her team. The complaint says, recall that Jones had taken possession of Abel's personal phone, including all of her text messages, emails, personal photos, and so forth. Having chosen a path of no return, she could now exploit them to great effect, pouring gasoline over the heads of her former clients and longtime former deputy and lighting a match. On information and belief, Jones approached Lively's team with an appealing offer, ammunition sufficient to destroy Baldoni, Wayfarer, and Abel in one fell swoop, wielding reams of Abel's private communications, which could readily be sliced and diced to construct a false narrative. Jones had quite the pitch for an embattled Lively and her team, knowing that Lively was convinced wrongly that Baldoni, and not her off-putting public appearances and cynical self-promotion, had been responsible for the rash of negative publicity directed towards her. Jones correctly assumed that she would find willing conspirators in the Lively camp. In turning over these materials to Lively, Jones knew full well that the blowback would also engulf Wayfarer and Baldoni, and that was the point, revenge. Her plan worked like a charm, at least for a time, working hand in glove with the New York Times. Lively concocted a fantastical narrative that laid the blame for her travails exactly where she believed it belonged, with others. At the end of the complaint, they close it out by saying, at bottom, the case is a simple one. Lively used her power to steal a movie from its director and production studio. Then she held them hostage to her incessant demands by extortionate threats to destroy what they had left. All the while, she failed to understand the heart and soul of the movie she stole and the book it was based on, let alone the intensely personal impact the book had on millions worldwide. When her thoughtless promotions fell flat because they focused on flowery glamour and cross-merchandising opportunities for her own brands, rather than on centering the voices of survivors, she finally got a taste of accountability, and she did not care for it. She made one final demand to plaintiffs that they finally and forever fall on the sword for her by apologizing for things they had not done, killing their future prospects in the process. When they refused, defendants' gloves came off, and they used their power and resources to try to take down plaintiffs for good by coordinating with Jones and Sloane, master practitioners of the dark arts of public relations, in an intricately planned character assassination plot. They nearly pulled it off too. So in this complaint, we are full on seeing Justin and his team describing this big plan that Blake had to basically redeem her reputation after basically getting canceled for promoting It Ends With Us. And that instead of taking accountability of like, wow, I shouldn't have promoted the movie that way, she saw these text messages and was given this story basically of like, oh my gosh, like these people didn't hate me because of the way I promoted the movie. These people hated me because they were forced to hate me because there was all this stuff being planted by Justin and his team. Though Justin and his team are saying, that is not true. We did not actually do all that. Yes, the text messages show us having conversations of talking about things that you were doing and talking to the press, but we didn't actually have to do much of anything to take you down to protect Justin because you were doing all of that on your own with the way that you were promoting the movie. So that is basically what is being said in this situation. I still cannot get over Blake not reading It Ends With Us, and I can't understand how Colleen could watch her book just be taken and redone like this by someone who didn't read her book. But also at the same time, she also could have been very captivated by the fact that it was Blake Lively that was acting in this movie adaptation of her book, that it didn't really matter to her how the movie turned out. She just wanted to be liked by Blake Lively and maybe by Taylor Swift and Ryan Reynolds as well. But I want to know what you guys are making of this whole thing and who the heck you think is about to win this lawsuit, because there's just so many details to this. I want to know your thoughts. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.